So with this training, it's going to be based around movement, dodging, and positioning in fight, uh, on the way towards enemies, out of fight, etc. Like every possible situation. Also some nice situations with like chokes and whatnot. Like when we're sieging somewhere and we have a choke, where how do I stand the best way? What do I have to keep an eye on? Overall, what we look at with positioning is the groundstone of the definition of what mitigation is. To understand what proper movement means, we at the same time need to understand what proper mitigation means. Because mitigation does not start by skills that your supports are using. It starts where are you standing in the squad and what are you doing when we're moving or the enemy moves. Like there's multiple situations there which have to be considered. The most important ones that I'm going to go over here though is movement generally, like how are you moving inside of a Zerg and around a Zerg, then dodging and positioning if you cannot move. We're going to start with the easiest one, which is standing where you have to stand no matter what. So let's say since we have quite a mixed amount of classes, everyone who is a Mesmer is going to be like the Mesmers and the Scrapper are going to be support classes, and everyone else is going to be heal or a DPS class. First of all, we differentiate here between DPS class, heal class, stab class, and support class. Stab classes are like Chronomancer, Luminary, Fireband. Support classes are Harbinger, Catalyst, Paragon, Troubadour. Heal classes are Heal Scrapper, Heal Druid, Heal Vindicator. And DPS classes, of course, everything else, Ritualist, Core Warrior, Spellbreaker, Berserker, Holosmith, and so on and so on. And what we need to understand first is if we are standing in a Zerg. I'm just gonna pick someone random. Jess, you're gonna be commander. Squirrely marker is commanding. Just please move into Squirrely. Just move into Squirrely and stay where you are. Commander, move now. And if you would stack up, just stand still, it's fine. If people then would need to stack up on you, I can already tell you that half of you is standing wrong. So if everyone except Jess is moving away really quick, so I can showcase where people have to stand. You have to imagine like a certain threshold in your mind. Like when you see where Commander is standing, you have to imagine a range behind Commander, like a line which goes back. And this line is split in between. If I put down now a line behind, this is the distance every support and every DPS can stand from Commander away without losing boons, without not getting stability, and so on. Like this is the distance which every healer and every DPS player has to always stand in a squad. Not a single one of you is gonna be somewhere here behind Commander. And this does not change when Commander starts moving. Like you always want to keep this distance behind Commander, just for the pure fact, if there's damage coming from in front, you are not going to be the first one to get clapped because you are squishy. Not only squishy, but especially as healer, your job is so important. If you die first, your whole party dies. That is very important to understand. So if we are stacked now, we want to have everything which has strong blocks, has invulns, have distortions next to Commander. So all the Mesmers, all the Guardians, and also Necros, except Ritualists and Reapers. So every Scourge and every Harbinger which are playing support, not damage, only when they play support, have to stand right next to Commander. How you're standing next to Commander, like if I'm Scourge, for example, right now, if you're standing here, or if you're standing here, or if you're standing a little bit further away, all of this is fine. It does not matter. If how far left, okay, you should not stand like this, right, and consider this stacking. This is not stacking, but if you're like a little bit offset to left and right, that's not a problem. But you should not be standing here. You should not be standing here. You should not be standing here. Like, even if we are just randomly walking around in the open and Commander stops to wait backline, what many people are doing, they walk, Commander stops, and then they just stop here. Yeah, Commander stops, I stop, and then I just sit here. That is wrong. What you want to do is you want to turn around and get behind Commander again. Commander is the tip. No one has to be in front of Commander in no situation ever. That's very important to understand. And then of course, if you're a healer, let's say you're a healer and you also end up here, right? Like then just going this behind Commander is not enough. You can go this far back like this as healer or as DPS and you're gonna be fine. You wanna be in the back line. That's very important to understand. But very important to understand as well is this is not considered backline anymore. This is already being third row and this is wrong. So you can be behind Commander, but also don't overreact on how far you go back. And really make sure that you still keep a certain stickiness to Commander. So, what are we doing now if Commander's bunkering and enemy starts to move around us? Let's say Rafa is the enemy and enemy moves this around the enemy commander. If Rafa now starts to rotate around enemy commander and you look at my movement, you're gonna see no matter what enemies do, no matter what the enemy is doing, you always want to stay on the opposite side of the enemy. And this means also predicting, like if Rafa is now the whole time going left and right, right? So it's relatively hard to predict where he's going. But if you have an enemy who's like just straight up always going left, then you can also overpush Commander a little bit and give yourself the time to, like, how do you explain it? Like, go further into his direction because he's going to keep going this way. So you go a little bit more into this direction that you have more time to cast already. And that's something that you need to keep an eye on the enemy at all times. You always want to mirror the enemy, even if we're just closely stacking. And while we do this, you always want to keep your distance to Commander and stay behind Commander. There's no excuses of not doing that. And when Commander starts walking, then of course you have to mirror the behavior. Of course, this is stressful. This is going to get on your nerves. This is going to be stressful. This has nothing to do with relaxed gameplay. Sometimes you even have to use dodges and like movement abilities to stay behind Commander. But this has just something to do with patience and actually watching your screen. As bad as this sounds, as toxic as this sounds, if this is a problem for you, then you're not observing enough what is actually happening in front of you. Then your focus is just not good enough. And that's where all of the points that we're going to talk about are going to end up as well. If you have problems with movement, if you have problems with dodges, if you have problems with stacking, then you're just not observing, like, quote unquote, calm enough what is happening. Because all of this can be easily solved by taking your time and actually watching your screen. Because you only have to care about two things right now. Like, especially your movements. The two things are, what is your commander doing? What is enemy squad doing? That is the baseline of movement already. There's nothing else to worry about. And then, of course, after that, you start doing your job as a class. As support, you look at boons and whatnot. As DPS, you look for windows to spike, for opportunity to spike, catching enemy slackers and whatnot. And as healer, you start healing. And of course, if we look at everything at the same time, it's still going to be a whole lot which each and everyone has to do. But those things are muscle memory. I can guarantee you, if you practice those things, if you try to always look at it, to like do it better, at some point you're going to realize that all of the stickiness, all of the movement comes from itself. Okay? So that would be stacking and knowing where to stand. To like sum up the three most important points is, if you are a DPS or healer, you stay a little bit further away from Commander. Point 1. Point 2, if you are a Firebrand, Guardian, Mesmer, generally a more tanky class that has blocks, invulns, and big supports, you stand closer to Commander because you need to sponge damage. Point number 3, even when stationary, no matter what enemy is doing, no matter what Commander is doing, you're always staying on the opposite side of the enemy. Which also means if enemy is pushing through, you dodge through Commander and turn around. And as fast as you can, of course. Like, speed and reaction time is important. That would be stacking. Are there questions to this right now already? To stacking and positioning. To stacking, and then we go into movement. No? Okay. So, now movement. Movement is generally a little bit more complicated because that means looking at the enemy a lot more. Do me a favor. Rafa is gonna keep being the enemy commander and just stack on him as if he is commander. I'm gonna start my screen share so you can see my perspective, and I'm gonna explain then what is to look at, because there's a bunch of different things which is not necessarily the easiest if you see it from your own perspective, if you don't know what you're looking at. Now, if we talk about movement on the enemy right now, like if this is I can even change teams real quick. 1 second. We make it proper. No. This is now enemy. This is now perspective how you look at the enemy. And there's two things that are very important right now that you need to check always first before you do any decision of where and how to move. Like, you don't even start thinking about pressing W before you're not sure with those two things. Thing number one is the enemy moving themselves already. That is within the most important thing that you need to worry about when you think about your own movement. And that's a yes or no question. There's not a little bit or maybe. Either the enemy is standing still and stacking, or they're moving. There's no in between. If the enemy is moving, stacking, then they are moving. That still counts as moving. It doesn't matter. If the enemy is not standing still for longer than 5 seconds, they're moving. No, that's very important to understand. For the simple reason, this changes how we react on those things. Because you always need to remember, moving yourself always means you pass distances, like you travel certain distances. It's short or long, one dodge distance, one leap distance. If you have a leap, it does not matter. This also counts for SPVP and for PvE. You always need to check that first. So, and why is that so important? Because if enemies dodging towards me, or no, not dodging, like moving towards me, and I want to dodge out of damage, or my commander is moving out of damage, right? Like enemies, you don't need to move, by the way, you can stand still. If enemy is moving towards me, like into this direction here, and our commander moves to the left side out because he wants to mitigate damage, then you have to be careful. If he moves out of the left side out while enemy is moving, as I said in the beginning, you cannot dodge like this, like in front. There's two problems with this. Problem number one, you're in front of commander. Problem number two is you dodged into the enemy. Like, enemy will catch you here. There's no way that enemy is not going to catch you here if they're running towards me. No. How are we properly dodging this? There's two ways of dodging this. Enemy is moving towards you. There's either the dodging directly behind commander, or there's taking an even, I don't know what the correct English word is, but like an even larger angle, and you don't like directly dodge behind commander, you like nearly dodge like just away and then like walk a half circle back to commander. Those are the two proper options which you have here. Both require you to understand where your commander is standing or ending up standing if he's still moving, and how much time you actually have. In this distance right here, if enemy is moving towards me and commander stands there and I'm over here, you have the time of taking the dodge into this direction. You don't need to go fully back. Like, this distance between you and your commander is enough that you can take the direct dodge. But sometimes there's situations that your commander moved there, maybe you were immobilized and enemy still moves this way, right? Because they want to catch people that are stacked here. This way you want to take the steeper angle. For another two reasons. First of all, if your commander is moving in this direction and he anticipates that enemy is taking slackers that are caught here, your commander will react on that as well and is going to try to farm the tail of the enemy. And with you not directly dodging towards your commander, but dodging away and then taking a somewhat longer way, you not only give your supports the time to actually realize that you were stuck behind, because you are in the open right now. You might think that's scary and wrong, but that also helps your supports of actually seeing you, like visualizing that that you have been behind after that restack on commander, and you give your commander the time that he has more like opportunities to actually damage enemy from behind. Because if you dodge away, you make the distance longer that enemy has to come towards you to actually catch you, and it gives your commander more time to think as well, because commander needs time to think as well, right? Like he's not a machine and has instantly solutions for everything. Oh. So this was maybe a little bit lot and not maybe the easiest to understand, but to sum this specifically up is really think where and how you're dodging, if not only enemies approaching you, but also if commander is moving. You don't need to always take the direct path to your commander. The direct path is in 90% of the times the wrong path. You're gonna kill yourself. If you think about open text, right, just go back into your memory, think about Reset maybe, which we played yesterday, or about any of the open text we had in the past days. How do you see people from your own squad die most of the time? In front of tech or right next to tech, or even on the way to enemy. And that has normally only three reasons. They're fucked up their movement, they're fucked up their dodges, or they're fucked up being behind commander. Simple as that. There's no, yeah, I've been stuck, I've not been cleansed, I have not been stopped, whatever. No, it's your movement. If you die on a movement because you get stuck or whatever, then you have been late and did not anticipate that something is happening. You need to watch the enemy. If you don't do that, you cannot blame any of your supports. You are just straight up not allowed to, because you fucked up your job. And whatever your support did wrong at that moment doesn't matter, because you fucked it up as well. So always take that in mind. It's always two parts of dying on a cross or dying on a movement. That is stationary dodging. Now we come to a little bit more complex part. How are we moving if enemy is close by? I'm now standing this close towards you. Like specifically, you're gonna see commander. Like I'm gonna be this close as you when I'm bleeding. I'm gonna be this close towards my enemy. As most of the time, unless we are kiting away or whatever, or we're repositioning. But if we look at this situation, and you want to understand what commander is thinking, right now there's like a lot of AoEs between us, there's like a lot of damage coming in. Commander's always watching in squad view the AP HP of his people. So what can you do to make not only your life easier, but also your support's life easier? First and foremost, remember what we talked about earlier on the first thing with the positioning. That already helps so much. You cannot guess how much it really is. Like that's unbelievable how much that already helps. Because if all tanks are standing on me and you stand like a little bit behind me, you can also re-invite me to squad, and you see my marker a little bit better. 1 second. Controlling. Just a little bit. Everything. It's movement, it's dodging, it's everything. I did ping. No. But back to the topic. No. As I said, enemy your commander standing here. Think back about the positioning what we talked about. If you're DPS, I cannot do marker. Yeah, then we just redo the squad real quick. Just join my squad real quick, and then we see it again. Just stand still where you are and rejoin the squad, and then should be fine.
I've got the target.
So, as said before, think about where you have to stand, DPS and healer here. No, stand there. You're still the enemy. You're still the enemy for reference. You're still the enemy for reference. So, DPS and healer here. Supporter and like stab people, like everyone that's tanky, as explained before already, right here. What's happening is, if we go close for damage now, this is gonna keep being, right? Like, all the tanky people here, all the damage and healer here. And most of the damage is gonna be eaten up by the people standing right in front of you, right? Like, this is also very nice to understand if you think about damaging the enemy. All the tanks, all the fire brands, all the chronomancer should be right here by the enemy as well, and they're tanking your hits while your own supports are tanking the hits for you. So when we think about moving somewhere, you need to understand very often the commander based their dodges on how the enemy is moving. This is not only the simplest way, it's also reactive gameplay and guarantees you that whatever you want to do, you can keep the upper hand. It's like a little bit like a child's game. The first one to move loses. Because as soon as you start to give the first movement, the enemy is always going to react on you, and he's going to have the upper hand because of that. Because he can prepare his things a lot better, and when he moves seconds, when enemy moves as second, he will already dodge whatever you want to do after your movement. The only thing to like really counteract this is that your squad has to delay even longer after the movement to wait until enemy movements is over. But then again, if you even delay further and wait for enemy movement to end, you have to move again to get closer again. So it's a spiral which you need to be aware of if you want to understand what commander's thinking. But for the movement part, if you want to help commander to like, if you want to help commander dictating the squad into a certain direction, then look on your feet. A lot of people, when I watch their footage or when I see them play, like especially like people that are not used to World versus World, they're like mostly out of PvE, they will, if you look at my screen share, will have the camera like this. I will not see anything on the ground. Like if I put myself into the middle of I would not know what's going on below my feet. I don't see HP bars of anyone except the people in the back, which I don't really care about anyhow. Like you don't see anything. So what you can simply do is, you left click on your screen and you drag your mouse down, and then you see everything. You can way easier judge distances between you and the enemy, and you can way easier see HP bars, not only yours, but also enemy ones. And even more important, if you look at this from an enemy perspective, or like against the enemy perspective, you also see where everyone from the back line is walking, right? And if you already see that the damage dealer on an enemy squad are slowly moving to the right side, there's only going to be two ways what is going to happen next. Okay, there's only two things that are going to happen next. Thing number one, enemy commander moves into the direction that the DPS players and everyone that is impatient is already going. Situation two is, commander is stubborn and does his thing, which he should normally, but not everyone does that. But commander's gonna do his thing and does like an aggressive movement and whatnot, and creates because of that a tail in his own. And there's only gonna be two reaction to this as well. If you see that happening already, and you know what enemy's gonna do, since remembering two things is not that much, specifically if you try to focus on it, but there's only two things that you are gonna end up doing. There's no technically three, but the third thing is technically irrelevant, but we go with it. So three things that can end up happening. First, which is completely irrelevant, you're just gonna stand still and do nothing for another like 3-4 seconds, and then you have to rethink again and look at the enemy. Situation number two, your commander realizes that enemy starts to drag themselves out, and he dodges into the back line of the side of the enemy that is starting to spread out, For example, if more and more enemy players are moving from the backline into Marker's direction, then it's going to be very possible that your commander is going to realize, oh, they have a weak point there because they're not as sticky. We dodge in here and do damage here. That is situation number one. Situation number two is commander anticipates that enemy commander is going to do a movement soon because of that, and then you have to not only listen but also understand what directions are viable right now, because like straight up dodging into this direction does nothing for your squad if this is not a kite call. But if that's a kite call, then you're going to hear it, right? Like then your decision has been taken for you. Commander's going to call the kite. That's the case even with timer. But commander should never move here and expect people to understand that this was a valid option of moving. No, if commander's standing like this in front of the enemy and enemy starts spreading and he anticipates the movement of the enemy, there's only two ways of dodging. If he doesn't want to go for an aggressive movement. Defensive movement number one is he takes a steep angle and dodges away because he does not, he can not clearly judge if the enemy is going to push or disengage themselves. So he takes the safe opportunity of just replacing them in front of the enemy, because commander's going to dodge here and then instantly re-approach. That is the defensive movement number one. Defensive movement number two is specifically if the smaller the squad is, the more of an option is this. Instead of going the right side in for the damage, he's taking the left side, dodges through behind the enemy. Those are the only two defensive movements an enemy can, your commander is going to do here towards the enemy. Everything else is going to be a kite call and going to be communicated that way. And you can easily judge that if you think back, okay, the commanders that I'm following, what are they mostly doing in those situations, like what we just talked about? What is like a typical call that is? And then you're going to realize there's only those technically three things. There's either a kite, dodge left or right side out, or go left or right. Like most commanders are not even saying out or something. They just say left, 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 for example, or right, right, right. And a right, right, right here would be the offensive variant. So if a movement of commander ends up into the enemy, it's offensive, you start doing damage. And of course you need to keep your distance. If a movement goes outside of the enemy, it's a defensive movement, and you don't need to worry so much about what's happening in front of you rather than what's happening behind you. Because in an offensive movement, you're taking away the decision of the enemy to like attack you most of the time, because enemy is going to be busy saving those people which are spreading out or which are late, or enemy your commander just pushes in anyhow in the backline. Like you can also just decide it without any clue what's happening, but enemy will be busy mitigating you. While in the defensive movement, if people are slow in the backline, it's the same thing as what I explained, right? Like enemy is going to see this and it's going to see a backline and it's going to push that. If backline is not moving fast enough, doesn't get super speed, gets not cleansed, then they're gonna get caught. It's a take and a give. You play like, what is the perfect example here? You play like a card game and you're always exchanging cards until you have the same card that's laying in the middle, and if you have the same card that's laying in the middle, then you have to take the whole stack. And if you take the whole stack, that's the moment where you lose and your people in the backline. So what you want to do is, you want to place always the card that is not the same, to make sure that you keep being in an advantage to the enemy. Now, are there questions to this? Because I couldn't assume this was pretty confusing. So if you have questions or didn't understand anything, please say so. No? Okay, so I'm gonna assume that you understood what I said. Smile. So, with movement, there's not only when you're fighting. It also implies knowing how to kite, since we already spoke about it. And this is now gonna be... kiting is a skill check. on multiple bases. If you know how to properly kite, you will know already right now is, yeah, when I kite, I can also cast into the back, I can put abilities into the back, I can wound people while I go away. But for everyone that does not know those details, it's gonna be skill check if you can even save yourself. Because kiting is so far difficult. Moving in front always creates a tail as commander behind you. But if you move back, of course this tail is gonna go into the other direction. And that means for the support, they need to be twice as cautious about what they're doing when it comes down to booning, because if they press one button wrong, a person is gonna get CC'd, immobilized, whatever, and they die because of that. And you don't want to do that. So to prevent from being the person that creates problems on a kite, and you know for yourself that you're bad with about face, with turning around, do yourself the favor. Commander calls for a kite, just over push commander in the direction that he wants to kite, and then turn around if you're not good with about facing and dodging. That's very important to understand. Every commander rather has you going into the backline and survives on a kite than trying to do anything and die because of that. Because no matter what you do, if you die during a kite, you're just -1. There's nothing that you can do before you die that makes it worth to die on a kite. So really take yourself the time. If you know that you cannot move properly, that you're slow with dodges, and this is also no personal attack, right? Like, this is just how this game mode is. There's different skill levels, and if you just cannot, then you need to accept it and play around the way that you can and just get better with those things, right? Practice, 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 practice. Movement is all about practice. And this implies also for everything, right? If you have problems with dodging into the enemy and do proper damage, then take a double dodge in the beginning. You're gonna have problems afterwards because you maybe will miss a dodge on another movement. But if you know that you have difficulties with that, take the safer variant for as long as you need until you feel comfortable in what you do. Because the longer you survive in the beginning, the more value you give for the squad. Because the commander is going to be less fucked up about someone dying 20 seconds into combat than someone dying 5 seconds into combat, right? Always keep this for yourself as well, because mistakes is what you're going to learn from. If you realize, oh damn, I died because I didn't have the dodge, because I needed to double dodge in the beginning, then you know, oh, maybe I should then better watch how I'm going into the enemy and maybe walk a little bit longer before. Or maybe I can even walk the whole distance because I'm very safe with my supports. But that is something that I cannot explain you. That is something that you have to practice. You have to see those situations yourself in combat and understand them. Judge for yourself what you can take on the easy way and where you need to be careful for yourself. And there is no, like, if anyone want to explain you how you have to play pushes with your movement, like you have to dodge here, then turn around, then make a flick flack, and then make a barrel roll, and then build like a house out of Lego. No. You can instantly stop listening. This person does not understand what it means to play the game in your eyes. Because if you see a situation, you're gonna react differently than someone else that sees the same situation. Therefore, if someone explains you what to do in detail, it's useless. They can tell you, yeah, try to dodge that more defensively or more aggressively. That is something that you can work with. But going into detail on movement is not going to help anyone. It's all about experiencing and judging it for yourself. And I'm also going to go so far. What I explained to you just minutes ago with like how to look at the enemy could be one way. But if you have the situation for yourself, you maybe realize that it's differently for you, and that's absolutely fine. Never take anything for granted and for 100% being correct when it comes down to movement. because you have to be comfortable with what you're doing, and you have to still keep doing what commander expects you to do. And you can only do that if you understand for yourself what you're doing there, which might end up resulting into movement and dodges, which are in other people's eyes trolling, right? But then always remember, those people did not understand how you viewed the situation. So if people are blaming you for bad movement, bad dodges, and you tried for yourself to do something proper, and you know that you tried your best, then just ignore it. There's nothing that's going to change those people, because people that already know how those things work very often forget that they started at some point as well. And movement is the hardest thing in this game. Even the best guilds like KA and SV, and even good alliances like Haya and Big, have issues with movement. Those people are also not playing perfect. No one in this game is playing perfect. There's not a single player out there where I would say, yeah, this person plays 100% of the time perfect. No, everyone does mistakes, and it's always movement. And that's where, let's say, GVGs between good guilds decide themselves later on who does a mistake earlier. It's all about mistake counting. So don't worry. Take yourself the time and practice that. So. That was roughly now dodging, positioning, stacking, etc. Are there questions to this? Or does anyone want me to go over something specific again? Or do you have any situation in mind that you would like to have an example for what you could have done? Yes, no, maybe, maybe not. No? Okay. So, to some. What? I'm gonna post it later when I have it done. So, to sum it up a little bit and to give like some handy tips. Do me. That comes down, as explained earlier on, how comfortable you are with your movement. If you know for yourself that about facing with camera and whatnot and running back like with one dodge, and you can then keep casting into the backline, is going to be doable for you and you can manage to do so, then keep doing it. Every commander's going to kiss your hand for that. But if you feel like that you cannot pull it off, even if you miss your spike timer, then just wait for next spike. Don't force to do anything. You are 10 times more value for the squad if you stay alive than if you do some damage on a call. Yeah. Survival over arc padding. Always. No. I've got a one question out of the stream chat. The person is playing Necro, join lots of public tags, and doesn't really know when to have to boon strip. Goes a little bit out of the topic that we're in, but I can gladly go over that a little bit as well. So knowing when to cast or how to move certain things when you are in a public tag, specifically when you are not on voice, comes down of looking even more intense to the enemy, and also what your own squad is doing. Could you do me a favor and like spread a little bit more? So in this case, we just say Rafa is again enemy commander. It's okay. If you see an enemy unit like this in front of you, and you are thinking for yourself, how do I do damage on this now? Like, I don't hear commander, it's a chat tag. Commander's also not writing anything. Commander's just standing here on the range, like not moving closer. He's just sidestepping them, like wiggling left and right to like make sure that people have time to restack and whatnot. the first thing that you want to look at is what is enemy doing. If commander doesn't give you indicators, if enemy is now moving towards me, like the whole enemy blob starts moving towards me and they want to attack me and whatnot, then you're gonna see that, right? Like the whole red wave of enemies is coming. The first thing you do is you take some more distance behind commander on the opposite side from which the enemy is coming. How do I know from which side the enemy is coming? Very simple with your positioning. If you stand a little bit more left of the enemy, then enemy comes over right. If you stand a little bit more right of the enemy, then enemy comes over left. If enemy moves from left to right, like you see that they're moving more and more closer to you, then you dodge left. If you see it exactly the other way around, you stand left and enemy is coming, you stand left of enemy and enemy is moving left, then you dodge right. And what you do after this dodges, you turn into the direction with your camera of where the enemy is coming from, and then you start putting wells on the necro down here. Because if commander's not calling anything or not giving you markers or anything, this is the perfect timing for you to start damage and stripping, like right before both groups hit each other. You want to put as much pressure between you and the enemy as possible. And this is like the simplest way to look at it if you want to look at boon strips and damaging when you are in public text, and specifically if commander is not on voice. Sometimes you have someone nice in the squad or in your party, if the commander made parties, who's then giving targets, and then you can also just focus the target in your party. That works, like I would say, 75% of the time as well. And besides that, it's really just watching at the enemy, and always make sure if you want to do something like damaging, healing, CCing, pulling, and wait for an enemy movement. In public text, no matter what commander is writing, no matter what commander is pinning, where commander is putting markers, if you see enemy moving as soon as you come close to them, wait until enemy stops and then put things on enemy's feet. You never want to cast something on enemy if enemy is walking. That does only work if you're in a voice squad, because commander can say, okay, we push wells, or the move, commander calls push, they move right side, and then commander sees that be like wells on the right side instead of just wells. The commander's gonna tell you already what to do. But in a public tech or in a non-voice tech, always wait until enemy stands still. That is like the biggest things to look at. Okay, are there more questions? If you're already at it, just ask ahead. Yeah.
Bring this one down.
Could you post me your build one time so I can look over what setup you have, because then I can give you already very, let's say, very detailed in there. Yeah, okay, that's good. So on that one, you have like, okay, we are now going into the situation expecting that you are in combat, okay? If you're not in combat, then it's a little bit of a more difficult situation, but right now we expect that you are in combat. There's two ways of maintaining the resource to keep your chance going. A little bit few more ways. Way number one is that you just keep F1ing on your feet if you have the adrenaline. Like, all weapon swapping also gives you the resource back. If that does not help, start swapping between your chants. That also gives you the resource. If you cannot stay on one chant because you're running out of resource soon, then just start swapping. All of the chants are worth their use, so you can sit in a different one and still do your job properly. But if we go into the situation, you have no adrenaline right now, and your chant is really about to run out. You can go with your heal skill, with the heal shout from the Paragon. that one gives you adrenaline if you are in combat. The barrier one gives you adrenaline 3 times if you are in combat. Using stuff 2 on your feet gives you adrenaline. And blocking with stuff 5 and then reusing the shout, which you get like the second cast of the stuff 5, also gives you adrenaline. And then you just go back into spamming F1s and chaining chants. You just always use any chance to like keep him up. It depends, of course, right? You always need to think about what could happen next, like how many are left of the enemy, how many are left from your squad. You don't necessarily want to cast like important skills, like for example the barrier shout, which we're using, is very important for the clash. The heal one is a cleanse. But for example, stuff 2, you can spam on your feet. On stuff, you can also 1-1-1 when you stand inside of enemies. The 1-1-1 does not need an enemy. It also works with allies as far as I know. So, and I'm pretty sure that that one also gives you adrenaline back. I'm not 100% certain of that, but stuff 2 and stuff 5 you can always use for that. And worst in case, if you really run out and we do not go close enough to the enemy, then you need to rely on utility skills. If you cannot keep up with the chance because there's just not a possibility for you, then you then start working around the tools that you have that actually work right now. Don't try to get stiffen up on using the chance if you cannot, right? If you cannot, then go to something else. You still have warhorn skills, you still have like banner, the shouts which you have, you still have the stuff skills. Use those if you cannot use anything else. If that makes sense. Yeah, also one thing with adrenaline management which I can give you is swapping chance is important, but don't swap too often and don't swap too fast with them. Like swapping between one and another chant is okay, like you couldn't do that, whatever, but don't swap from the one to the second and then to the third and then also F1 right after. Then you're not gonna have adrenaline afterwards. Never do more than 2 things after each other. So swap chant, one F1, and then you wait until you have adrenaline back. Or you swap weapons. Weapon swapping gives you adrenaline back, and then you can directly go again into swapping chant and F1. But never do 3 things after each other if you did not gain adrenaline. You always need to wait. Okay, I got adrenaline back. Now I can use things again. I wait for adrenaline, and now I can use things again. And take yourself the time. You are not rushed to press more buttons. Just pressing more buttons is not gonna do anything. Go smart about it. Okay, any other questions? If you already added. Yes, no, maybe. Shut up, Max. Okay, it's shut up, Max. Good. Okay, overall, I would say that summed it up. I hope that was helpful with movement, positioning, and dodging. As always, if you have more questions, gladly hit me up at any time. DMs are also always open. Might be that you need to send me a friend request first, but if I always check where the people, like from what server the people are, if they send me friend requests, and when I see it's like from a Guild Wars server or something, or from a line server, then I normally always accept it, so that should not be a problem. I don't know which setting I have in right now. And yeah, don't hesitate hitting me up if you have questions. I'm always there. And that would be it for this one then. Thank you, thank you.